This is Vlad on another episode of Vital Doc Talk. And today we have Dr. Rahi on the call. After a couple of attempts, finally we get this. We got it going. Dr. Rahi, welcome to the show. How are you doing?
Good. How are you? Thanks for having me.
Good. I'm doing good as well. I would love to learn more about your background and please share it with the audience.
Sure.
I know that you're in LA right now.
I
You're a
am.
surgeon. Go ahead.
I do a combination of integrative medicine and aesthetics. And I did a fellowship specifically in integrative medicine. And so what that is, it focuses on health, wellness, disease prevention, living optimally. And that's sort of where my passion resides.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And how long have you been into your practice today? And what's worked like the best in day one versus like today?
My private practice, I opened it a little bit over 4 years ago,
Mhm.
but it was part-time for a while until I could really figure out how to transition over to becoming full-time, because you're definitely not taught that in med school or residency. So something you definitely have to figure out on your own. And that's what I had to do. So for 2 years, I was doing it part-time while also doing hospitalist work. And then I eventually have transitioned over where I've been full-time for about 2 years.
Awesome. And like in terms of marketing and growing your practice, what like did you change your tactics, or is there like one tactic that you like to focus on and that's just been helping you grow?
So I definitely have changed my tactics since I first started. I think when I first started, I had no idea. Um, I did have a basic understanding that social media is really powerful, and that using social media, you're able to reach lots of people and you're able to convey your message to them. And so I did have that basic understanding, but I didn't really know how to harness the tools of social media the way I'm using it today. And so it's definitely, I've evolved as my business has evolved as well. When I initially started, it was mainly word of mouth, which is great because I think still word of mouth is the best way to market yourself. And then over the years, it's really developed, and my business has grown, my team has grown, and we really use a lot of social media to convey our message across.
I love that. Is there one social media channel that you like? Is it Twitter, Instagram, TikTok,
I
Pinterest?
think Instagram has been the most powerful tool for our practice because a lot of the things I do are visual, a lot of the aesthetic work. And so it's really nice for people to be able to see on a daily basis the different services that I offer. And so Instagram has been really great.
That's awesome. I've heard, I think a couple other doctors also like Instagram. What are your tips and tricks? What did you do when you first started out that now you're like, man, I wish I did not do that? And, versus today, like, what do you guys do?
So I think what I'm learning more and more is the more personalized it is, and the more I'm involved in the Instagram posts and um, the ideas that that we have together, that I have lots of input in, then it becomes more successful. When I initially started, I had somebody who was helping me with my social media, and I was pretty detached from it. Even the photographs, they weren't really of me or the things that I offered. And I feel that the more you're involved, the more authentic it is, and the better your account is, and ultimately the more you're able to sort of um, gather an audience and relay good information and exchange good information.
100%. I think nobody wants, fake personas or disauthenticity. I don't know if that's a word, but I'm going
Yeah.
to make one. Can you take us like through maybe like a story or something, maybe like some kind of post you did and then somebody responding, and then like take us through like from the post to the office, like that journey, a customer journey. Do you have like an example for us? Cause I think doctors are
Yeah.
well suited for them to like kind of understand how that cycle works.
Actually, I think one of the most important things that took me a while to understand myself, which I think would be really great for a lot of doctors to understand is the power of an influencer. Um, and you know, in LA, there are a lot of influencers, and there are a lot of people that consider themselves full-time influencers. And although it's a newer career, it's definitely a very valid career. And I, the more I work with influencers and the more I understand how it can impact and change a practice, the more appreciation I have for the job title. Um, so initially, it was difficult for me to grasp the concept of having someone come in, such as an influencer, and you know, doing services. And a lot of times, these services are discounted or complimentary, depending. And it takes a while for you to see your return on investments.
Hmm.
But it comes back to you. And there have been many instances where I have worked with a pretty well-known influencer within the LA community. And then, you know, their followers have seen them come to me, and they've also, as a result, have come into the office.
Awesome. I really like that. So did you reach out to the influencers? Did they reach out to you? Because I'm sure there's doctors, right, that are listening. I've talked to those in Boston or here in Seattle, you know, Arizona, et cetera. How would you recommend they interact with the local influencers and partner with them to enhance their practice?
There's so many different ways. It's not one way. Sometimes influencers will reach out to me, and we'll work something out with them. Um, or, you know, if there's somebody that we particularly are interested in having come into the office, we'll reach out to them. Or people will connect us. Like somebody, one of my clients will come in, he or she will know that one of their friends is a good influencer that might, you know, work well with my products and the services that I offer, and they'll connect us. So I've met influencers so through so many different avenues. And back in the day when we used to actually go out to physical events, I used to meet influencers that way as well. So
That's
um,
awesome.
yeah, lots of different ways. Um, I think my advice to the thing is, in LA, it's really easy because there's a lot of
Yeah.
influencers here. It's super, super easy. And that's why it would be really important for anybody in a city such as Boston or Seattle to um, find somebody, either a person who does social media or an agency, and really partner with them, because they will have a roster of a lot of the quote unquote influencers in their communities.
That makes a lot of sense, right? So if you, I think this goes back to the thought of like, if your network, right, is really so powerful and the vendors in your network. So if you have the right players, the right agency you're working with, et cetera,
Yeah.
I think a lot of times when doctors talk to these different agencies, sometimes they don't ask the questions that should be asked. And so if you're going to go for the influencer play, you should definitely figure out, you know, what you want to do and get an example of that roster. So that's awesome. Did you have that in mind? Did your agency suggest this to you?
Yeah. When I first started, I definitely didn't have that in mind. I didn't even understand that. I didn't understand even the concept, right? I knew medicine, and I knew I wanted to run my own practice, and I knew that I really enjoyed doing aesthetics, integrative medicine. Um, and when I started connecting, I've been through several people that have helped me through my social media, and the current person that's helping me, she's really great, and she's been with me for over a year and a half. And I think we've sort of evolved together and learned together, because it's also, all of this is like rapidly evolving, and everyone's sort of learning as we go. Because I'd say maybe like 10 years ago, this wasn't, even 5 years ago, this wasn't a thing. So just as much as I'm learning, I believe that she's learning too. So I think we're also keeping eyes open and seeing what other people are doing. And I think that's completely okay to do, because we all, you know, live together in this world, and there's nothing wrong with like getting ideas from other people. So we're learning as we go, and we're seeing what other businesses are doing, and how influencers bring success to that. And yeah, that's how it's been evolving.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Can you give us an example of maybe like an influencer campaign you did? You know, for their privacy, you don't have to give like the exact influencer person, but can you give me like a
Sure,
type,
sure.
like an example somebody could probably try to use?
Yeah. So what I really appreciate is influencers that, like I was saying earlier, very local to the city that I'm in. So there's influencers that are like internationally famous, and they'll have followers all over the world, and that's great. Those influencers are great too. But when you have influencers that a lot of people, specifically in LA, follow, like there's a lot of girls in LA that are influencers, and a lot of other girls follow them for fashion, hair, makeup, things like that. And as a result, aesthetics comes, into that whole realm. Find that those type of influencers are super powerful because they're very well connected in the community. They know a lot of people, and they're also very personable in the sense that like whoever they've referred to, they personally know.
That's awesome. So I
Yeah,
think that makes a lot of sense, especially since you're in aesthetics. So it's like the same industry, the fashion hair thing.
yeah,
So I think people should think about that as well, listening to different doctors, like what industry should I be targeting and what types of influencers
right,
am I working with?
right.
And I think, like I said this before, it goes back to collaborating, finding the right vendors and influencers. I think are a part of that ecosystem. So if you know your
Yes.
ecosystem well enough, then you can start leveraging it and partnering with them. And I think it could turn into a lot of great wins. Awesome. What would be one like tip or takeaway if a doctor was to ask you, "Hey, Dr. Rahi, I want to expand my practice and improve." I saw your Instagram page, by the way. I can definitely tell you guys are on it. But what would
Thanks.
your tip be for them to grow?
Well, like you were just saying, really understanding what type of influencer you should work with, and what exactly your industry is. And for example, a cardiologist is not going to have the same type of marketing strategies as I will, or as, for example, an orthopedic surgeon.
Chiropractor. Yeah.
Right. And some of these specialties don't necessarily need to have, marketing. It depends exactly on your business model. So there's so many different things that come into play. Um, so one, figuring out if, something like doing marketing through social media is beneficial for you. And if it is, really working with someone who has a strong social media marketing background, because you can't do it alone. It's absolutely impossible unless you want to give up your actual physical practice and just focus entirely on social media. You can't do this on your own. It's definitely a full-time job managing a social media for a growing practice. So really sitting down, thinking about it, partnering up with somebody, and then strategizing. And sometimes things might fail. You might do things, put some money into it, and it might not necessarily turn out exactly how you had envisioned it to turn out. But that's okay. Still having that your vision of where you want your practice to go, and then still moving forward and
That
not
makes
giving up.
Yeah, well, yeah, obviously if you give up, you can't succeed at all. But I think that
Yeah.
that there's a lot of sense in terms of actually understanding that ecosystem and having that team in place. And that this is what I find the doctors that are kind of like, okay, maybe they're doing six figures, but the doctors that really improve and keep scaling up, they understand that
Hmm.
team concept and the ecosystem and how every player on their team has a specific role and that they can't just do everything, especially if you want to make a huge impact. So I think, yeah, we did a great job in this episode talking about how if you actually understand your ecosystem and the vendors in
Hmm.
play and you actually try to work with them and utilize them properly, you can make a real big impact. Where can we find you, Dr. Rahi? Now's your turn to tell us all about you, books, whatever. Let us know.
My Instagram is Dr. Rahi MD, but it's Doctor spelt out Doctor Rahi Rahimd. And my office is in Beverly Hills, and you can find me through the Instagram.
Awesome. Thank you guys. And that was another episode of Vital Doc Talk.